Hey folks, and welcome to Typology, the show on which we explore the story of you through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner, producer of the show, and we are thrilled to have you here with us today. And we are thrilled to introduce to you a Nashville fave and an institution here at home, Becca Stevens. She is founder of Thistle Farms. Do yourself a favor and go to thistlefarms.org and check out the work that she has done and is doing. Her organization literally brings women who are being sex trafficked in off the streets and helps them through radical transformation. The stories are beautiful, and as a byproduct, these women, a part of their process is creating these amazing lotions and candles and oils that will add beauty to your life as well. So you'll get beauty from the stories and beauty from the products they make and serve and sell to others. So be sure and check that out. She's got a brand new book offering called Practically Divine. And what a great title for Becca, because she is all about taking high ideas and expressing them in practical ways. So you'll want to check that book out, Practically Divine. She's been featured on the Today Show, CNN, ABC World News. She's been named a CNN hero, and she is a hero of ours here as well. Before I turn it over to the host, be sure and check out Ian's brand new book, The Story of You. He dropped it on December 28, and it is a great book. I've already used it as a resource multiple times. You'll want to check that out, and the audiobook is available as well now. So anywhere fine books are sold, you can pick up The Story of You. Hey, that's it for me, Anthony Skinner. And now, here is the host of our show, Ian Cron.
Becca Stevens, welcome to Typology.
I'm happy to be here and happy to see you, and I love your studio up here so much. It's like just getting to sit with you in your living room. It's very fun.
I know, it's our studio cave. And we love it up here as much as you do. Author of the book Practically Divine, among many others, I might add. And you know what? I don't always get the chance to have a dear friend in the studio. I mean, lots of times we have authors come in or, different folks that I don't know until they get here, And what a treat it is to have someone that I know well, that I love, that I actually work with from time to time, right? That I have so much admiration for because of your work at Thistle Farms, as founder of Thistle Farms. And just a friend of your husband's, Marcus, and God, the list goes on. I'm just so thrilled you're here.
I love being here, and I think it's very funny because you and I have sat through so many services together, and we can't sit together.
That's true.
We are dear friends to the point that we can't worship together beside each other in front of a congregation because we laugh.
I know. And for those who are listening, I work as what's called a non-stipendiary clergy person at St. Augustine's Chapel at Vanderbilt University, where Becca is also the chaplain. Mm-hmm. And so I, from time to time, just volunteer my services on a Sunday, which means I show up and Becca says, robe up. And I go, okay. And then she says, okay, you're going to celebrate the Eucharist today, or you're going to read the gospel. And I go, okay. And then, off we go, and we start to do whatever we do. And we do sit next to each other up front, in front of 400 people. And Scott, who is the associate on staff, is always like, he has to separate us.
I know, he's the contemplative. He's the contemplative justice person. And he goes like, take a deeper than normal breath. And we're going...
That's great.
It's true. It is absolutely true.
I was going to jump in too and say I'm a huge fan.
Aww.
Love what you do at Thistle Farms, and I'm so grateful you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. That's true. And so, again, welcome to Typology. We think you're an Enneagram 8, the challenger, though we've had some doubts. Right? You've had some doubts.
Yeah.
You actually are ambivalent about the Enneagram. And I don't even know why you're on this show, because you're ambivalent about the Enneagram, but that could be fun.
Because I'm not ambivalent about you. I trust you on all of that, and I trust you to type me or whatever it is that you do to people, and it will be beneficial in some way.
Yeah.
Well, then you just opened up a huge door, whatever it is you do to people.
I just want everyone to know that Becca insists every time she sees me, she goes, how's the anagram?
I like bananagrams too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that I love dearly. No, I take it seriously. I do take it seriously. And so I will quit. I had quit doing that a while ago. I really did.
You called it the enemagram once.
Oh my God, that's awful.
I know, you
I'm
did.
sorry.
It was so wounding. But I'm over it now.
Oh, good.
I'm over it now. Okay, Practically Divine, your new book. Tell us more, please. And then we're going to jump into Enneagram 8 stuff. But please, share this about Practically Divine.
Ian, it's my favorite book I ever wrote. That's the honest to God truth. It is the book that I got to write during COVID. Every author wrote a book. Like, what did you do during the summer? What did you do during the pandemic? And everybody's like, here's my book. And it sprung out of, genuine surprise in the middle of my life in the cafe at Thistle Farms in Nashville, Tennessee, where my mother's voice just came into my head in a particularly stressful situation, and then just really leaning into this idea that we're almost and just enough, and that we don't have to procrastinate about justice or about seeing beauty or about experiencing the divine right where we are. It's all right in front of us, and how do we find it? So if this book is anything, it is not a self-help book. It is specifically a book to say we are in the midst of the miracle and we can live into it. It may take some practice. It may take some new rituals in our lives. It might take some new eyesight, but we can do it.
I read the book, and then we did an event together during COVID, so it was online. It was a book drop sort of celebration. And I remember reading it and just being reminded of the great quote. It might have been Juliana Norwich, and she says, "It is the madness of great love to see God in all things."
Isn't that great?
Yeah. And that's what I felt when I read the book. Like, this book is all about the madness of seeing God in all things. And I love that. Now, there's a lot of stuff in there about crafts and justice, right? Because that's part of Thistle Farm's jam and your jam. So tell us more about it.
Yeah, so just, basically I think all of us are trying to live into this purpose. I mean, you talk about it in beautiful ways all the time and living fully into that. And for me, it is really the intersection of justice and crafts. I've seen women do amazing healing work, heal communities, do all kinds of stuff through this ability to be artisans and craftswomen. And so I spend a lot of time talking about the revolutionary nature of us being creative and finding that place where we get to create something and the beauty of that and how it's therapeutic, it's economically makes us viable, it heals families. I mean, it does all kinds of stuff. So, you're the one that really taught me a lot too about the beautiful, perfect imperfections. And so I think the idea of crafts instead of just artwork means you can do it okay. You don't have to be the master, but still your hands can create something that you find meaningful and beautiful, and sometimes that reminds you that you're meaningful and beautiful.
Oh, right. That's great. All right, so I just realized I didn't ask you a question. I just made the assumption, because Thistle Farms is such a big deal, and here in Nashville, you and Thistle Farms is legendary, but globally it's a big deal. Can you just give us give those folks who don't know, give them context. What are you laughing at?
No, just short. I'll do it short.
Well, you know how it is. We got a show here, baby. I got to get this thing done.
Okay. Thistle Farm started 25 years ago with a single house in Nashville, Tennessee. It's grown into a national and global movement for women's freedom. We have more than 600 beds around the country now, long-term beds for women survivors of trafficking, addiction, prostitution, sexual exploitation, women that we criminalized because we forgot they were victims first. We grew our own companies. We have justice enterprises so women can claim their lives, make choices, raise their children, and take their rightful place as healers of the community.
And to realize their own beauty.
To realize their own beauty, actually, yes.
Right, which is just sort of part and parcel of the whole. Because I do think so much of, and I've been in, Thistle Farms many times. I've sat in the circle of women many times. And I do think that one of the messages they hear, and that I hope typology listeners hear a lot from us, is that they are an expression of the divine, that they are fundamentally beautiful, and though their experiences have caused wounds and have created layers of defenses and resistance, and perhaps they've lost touch with their core goodness, their original goodness, it's still there.
Yeah.
And to help them unwind all the messages that they've heard and all the experiences and traumas they've experienced, this isn't a word, but I like it anyway, to re-reveal their core goodness, you know?
I think sometimes it's like a memory problem. We can't remember who we are, whose we are, you know, and I hope that when we offer people the time and the space and some of the resources, it helps them remember. And like you're saying, re-reveal, like just peel back those beautiful layers. And honestly, in the book, Practically Divine, I'm gleaning on 25 years of those heroic stories of people re-revealing, of people remembering, putting themselves back together. And, you know, the stories are heroic. And that's why I wanted to share a lot about how practically divine the women I've been privileged to walk alongside have been. You know, and some of them are really funny too. You know, sometimes all that stuff it's almost comical looking back on it when you think about things you did just to survive. And then how you found grace even in those moments.
Yeah. You know, I think about, the 12-step recovery rooms I spend a lot of time in, as you know, there's one of the big surprises when you go into them for the first time is because you always think, okay, I'm going to go in there and there's going to be a lot of people, some sad-ass people just sitting around whining about their terrible lives and how hard it is to live without drugs and alcohol and whatever, right? And you come in and people are laughing.
Yeah.
And they laugh at stories no one in their right mind would laugh about. You know? It's like, yeah, I drove over a median and my car landed up in like in the lingerie section of Bloomingdale's, when I drove through the... And people laugh and laugh and laugh at their own brokenness. I think it's a sign of, weirdly, it's a sign of the sort of the nascent sign of healing. Is the ability, the laughter, right?
And I think we do that at Thistle Farms. We laugh as much as we cry. Yes. We definitely do. And like I remember in one of the stories I told, it was one of the women who had come into the program, like many of the women that I work with, early trauma. It's a horrible story. Cast out to the streets as an early young teenager. Horrible addiction, all of that stuff. She came into the program. People are showering her with love, saying, "You're amazing. We love you." She didn't really hear any of it, right? I mean, she couldn't hear it. She couldn't take it in. She couldn't re-reveal that part of, to allow herself that grace. So she goes back out on the street. And one of the graduates said, "I know exactly where she is. I'm going after her." So she's yelling for her, and the woman hears her, and she says she has $20 left. And she pays somebody to say, she hides in the bushes, hands the person $20 and says, "Get rid of her. I can't listen. I can't come out. I'm too in my darkness. I cannot hear this light." And so they're yelling her name. And she said she's crouched down behind the bushes going, "Just go away, just go away, just go away." But that calling of her name while she was crouched down in the bushes ruined her high. That's what she said. And she couldn't get the voice out of her head, so she had to come out.
Wow.
I mean...
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful and you can't make it up.
No, you can't make it up. And it's like, in the end, somebody calling your name while you're crouched down hiding ruins your high anyway.
Anthony.
Ian Cron.
What if I told you could get high quality, ethically sourced, organic, and non-GMO groceries delivered to your door for a lot less than you're paying now and help out families in need?
Now that's something I'd want to know more about.
Yes, you do. Let me tell you, that's what I'm doing since I discovered Thrive Market. It's an online membership-based market on a mission to make healthy living easy and affordable for everyone. With each membership, they donate one membership to a family in need. So far, in fact, they've donated over $4.5 $5 million in healthy groceries.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right? And they carefully vet each and every item, so I get the best selection of high-quality pantry essentials and sustainable meat and seafood online without cleaning out my wallet. You know what I love?
What?
Jackson's Honest Sweet Potato Chips. Have you ever had those?
Oh, you're making my mouth water.
Got them from Thrive Market. You're welcome. Also, I love Ora Bora sparkling water in the cactus rose flavor.
Oh man, you know I love my Ora Bora. My favorite is lavender cucumber.
Where'd you get it?
I got it from Thrive Market.
That's right, you did. And my question to you, Anthony, is can your grocery store do that?
No way.
Now it can when you go to thrivemarket.com/typology. Join today to get 40% off your first order and a free gift. That's Thrive, THRIVE, market.com/typology to get 40% off your first order and a free gift. thrivemarket.com/typology. So, you know, for the longest time, we thought you were an Enneagram 8, the challenger. And I'm going to describe the 8 to you. And but I'm not so sure, right? I'm ambivalent about it. So I just want to describe the 8 to you. And I'm going to weave this into the conversation around Thistle Farms and Practically Divine. But so they're called the challenger. They are commanding, intense. They are notoriously blunt. They are assertive. They radiate power. Sometimes people sense that what they're radiating is anger because they're so intense. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the unconscious motivation underneath all this behavior is a need to assert strength and control over the environment and others in order to mask vulnerability and weakness. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times the stereotypical 8, presents this sort of, I don't want to say hardened, but sometimes defended exterior. And sometimes you're like, wow, that person's tough. You know what I mean? Like they're a real hard ass. And yet they have a very squishy middle. Lots of squishy, lots of love, lots of loyalty, lots of tenderness. It's just that they mask it a lot because in many ways the 8 is afraid of betrayal. And they're afraid that someone will take advantage. Like they see a world in which the weak get taken advantage of, and so they want to be strong, right? Because they've experienced something in their life that convinced them that that's the story of the world. The weak get taken advantage of, and the mighty, are getting moved through life more protected, right, and insulated from harm. Does that sound like you?
Oh, for sure. Yes. I mean, the answer is yes. But some of the other ones sound like me too. I think don't all of us have parts of ourselves that are the wings.
Yeah. Well, not so much wings. Yes. The way I would say it is that all of us contain all 9 types. Mm-hmm. All of them. Mm-hmm. It's just that we tend to gravitate toward and default to one more than the other 8.
Then I bet, yes, that probably is me.
Okay. So now my next question for you is, are you an anxious person?
Describe anxiousness, and I'll tell you.
Well, it's like, are you a person... Well, let me put it to you this way. Are you a person... What's your relationship like with authority figures?
Oh, well, that's an easy one for me.
Bring it.
Bring it. So my relationship with authority figures is that it has never gone well. I have to clarify many times for authority figures what the truth of the situation is.
Now, you don't have any trouble speaking truth to power, do you?
No.
Now, are you always sort of testing an authority figure to find out if they're loyal and trustworthy? Or do you just naturally just go up against power?
No, I think what I do is I circumvent power more than that. So I would start organizations. I would stay in a chapel instead of, moving in a hierarchical way because it's a place that feels free and safer to me. So it's not that I confront authority a lot. I think I just begin new ventures and find ways so I can still have that space of freedom.
So you circumvent authority figures. And then, but when you get pushed into a corner by one, what do you do?
What do? I either cry or maybe just now. I mean, I'm older now. Back in the day, it would be angry or cry or do whatever. But now I feel like I try to have as honest a conversation as I can have while not getting in too much trouble.
Well, I mean, it's possible you're an 8, because that's a lot of 8 stuff.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think you're an 8 who spends a lot of time, we would say this, that when an 8 is doing really well and they're healthy, they look like a healthy 2. And they're the giver, the helper. And a healthy 2 is someone who's an altruistic giver. There's no calculated or strategic giving. You know what I'm saying? And there's somebody that, when they're really healthy, are very attuned to the feelings of others. Like they have a really good ability to read feelings and then move in and help in a really caring, nurturing way. So you may be what we call a social 8 that spends a lot of time at the high side of 2, where you're a helper and a giver. And you are very concerned with matters of justice,
Yes, I
which
am.
is very characteristic of the 8. The 8s love to defend underdogs. They just can't help themselves. It's like they gravitate toward the lowest of the low and want to raise them up.
Oh.
Right, which is a feature of who you are. You starting to like the Enneagram a little bit more right now?
I do like it. I love hearing you talk about it. I do love that. I love your insights. But, you know, Ian, honestly, I love it. But I also love it, like, just when you're preaching and you take any word. Like, I remember when you, the word behold, what it means to behold. Or words when you talk about, defining spirituality. Whenever you do that stuff, I always learn something. So I'm learning, and I love that, but I also love it when you just preach and talk about whatever.
All right. Complete turn in the water.
Okay.
Talk to me about your relationship with your mother.
Yes.
Because I'm a therapist, and that's how I love to lead a conversation. Tell me about your mother.
Yeah. So my mom died the week we opened Thistle Farm, so 25 years ago.
I didn't know that.
The same week. They've been planning it forever, and she died. It was
She'd
August.
been planning it forever?
No, the whole community.
I was like, wow, she planned that?
No, but I'm saying, like, I think she would have been really proud. I mean, she was the director of a community center in Nashville, and I think she would have been so proud of what the small group of us were trying to do about really welcoming people with dignity and honor for them to have the space to do their heroic work. But so she dies the week that it happens. And so it's amazing to me that 25 years later, when I'm beginning to write what I think is probably the last book that I want to share about these themes, it's her voice in my head. That's how powerful her voice was. So she raised 5 kids as a single mom. My dad had been killed by a drunk driver when I was little. And she had these sayings she used to say. I mean, it was like I think of it as like just kind of how she made her way through the day. If you could find a saying around it, it'll be better, no matter what. And so, if you said something like, "This isn't fair," she would always say, "Who promised you fair?" Like that was one of her, like, no one, I don't know anybody promised me fair. Or, if somebody did something that she thought was particularly egregious, she would say, "Can you believe they did that in broad daylight?" And she used to say, if you didn't want to let stuff go, she would say, 3 moves are as good as a fire. Meaning, you don't want to lug that stuff around anyway. Just let's get rid of it. Let's throw it out. Let's do it. But she had these ways of just communicating her whole theology in these really short ways. And those sayings, they stay with me. Even to the tone is in my head. The tone she used and how she looked and what she moved with. And I think it was a really great inheritance. My mom was practical. She was the most practical. She was raised on a dairy farm in upstate New York. she became a nurse. I mean, what's more practical than a dairy farmer nurse? Nothing. And then she moved into taking care of kids and running a community center. And I always think of her, my mom, as this creative, amazing person who made do with little in an extravagant way. And she was to me, like a lighthouse. That's the best way I can describe her. Like when you're out on those rocky, crazy, oceanic waves, you see this lighthouse and it's steady and beautiful and this constant light, and you just know it's there and you can always go back to it. But then when you get there, it's kind of cold and made of stone.
That is so
That's
funny.
amazing.
And it's like, okay, there was, I remember one time saying to her, Mom, we're all getting older, we're all moving out, we're having babies, all the kids are getting big. I don't know that you have a ton of friends. I just want to know, who do you talk to if you have a problem? And my mom said to me, well, give me an example. She couldn't think of a problem you might have that you would need to talk to someone about.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Does that give you a hint?
Oh, listen, you're talking to a guy whose mother stories are infinite. Anthony,
Yes.
you know the new year is always a great time to discover new things about ourselves and our interests, right?
Absolutely.
Well, just as it's important for us as adults to learn new things, it's important for the kids in our lives to make these same discoveries. With a KiwiCo subscription, kids can discover something new all year long. Through hands-on art and science projects, kids can discover the engineering and mechanics behind everyday objects, the science behind the chemistry of cooking, geography, new cultures, and brand new art and design techniques.
This is so cool.
Our assistant, Wendy, she has 2 young boys, 8 and 10, right?
Yes, she does.
They love their screen time, but they get so excited when they receive their new kit each month. The day the box arrives is now their favorite day of the month. They recently, for example, received their 6th crate and had a great time building a wooden crane and making their own color-changing slime. Don't you want to discover and play with color-changing
totally
slime,
do.
right?
Yes.
They even gifted an individual crate to their neighbors who made their own paper dolls.
Wow.
So this year, encourage your children to be innovative, creative thinkers, and give them the tools to learn new skills, build new experiences, and make new connections to the broader world. Redefine learning with play. Explore hands-on projects that build confidence, creativity, and critical thinking skills all year long. Get 50% off your first month plus free shipping on any crate line with code typology at kiwico.com. That's 50% off your first month at KiwiCo, KIWICO.com, promo code typology. And my mom is a hardcore 8. But she hasn't done enough personal work, to have developed into this nurturing but still very strong presence. And I have a new story about my mother.
No.
You're just not going to believe this. So I tell many stories about my mom
Yeah,
on typology, right? So she's in a assisted living facility now, and she has dementia, and but she's still like a force of nature, even though half the time I don't understand what she's saying, right? Sometimes I will call her on the phone and she'll be okay for about 10 minutes. And then I hear this, hello, Dolly. Well, and then literally she knows all the words and she sings it as loud as she can into the phone. And I just let her sing. And she's just, she's a piece of work.
And I have to clarify, after all these years, I met your mother, and I've met her several times. You are not exaggerating on the voice.
Oh, no. Hey, man, 75 years of smoking Pall Malls.
You have it down.
Did she
This is
have to
not
quit smoking to go into an assisted living
Yes,
place?
and do you know why? Because the geriatrician said to her that it would blow up her oxygen tank and kill everybody in the bingo hall if she didn't.
Oh my gosh, was that hard for her?
Here's the nice thing, I guess. They put her on patches and she just stopped.
Awesome.
So that was that.
Yeah.
But the other day, she took a fall. And she was okay, but by law, they have to take her to the emergency room, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, they're poking and prodding her, and she's 93, and so she's got like paper thin skin. And so if they do that, she gets, right? This actually happened. My brother was there. I have a witness to this event, okay? My mother, God bless the eights, right? They're poking and prodding her, and I guess, I don't know what they did that, made her uncomfortable, but she lunged up off the gurney and grabbed the nurse by the lapels and said, "I'm going to tear your heart out, and then I'm coming after your family."
That's so scary.
That's
no,
hilarious.
It's just classic. My mom. It's just classic behavior.
Oh my God!
Literally said that. I kid you not. You have to have a sense of humor in these situations.
Yeah,
you can't
totally.
just, say, "Oh, the poor thing." It's like, nope, that's my mom.
That's it.
That's it.
That's
I'm not, it's just how she rolls. That
Well,
big
hello, Dolly.
Well, hello, Dolly. That's right, for sure. Hello, Dolly. So I love throughout the book that you have, these wonderful, sayings from your mom. I laughed out loud at a bunch of them because you have like 10 or 15 in there. I mean, there's just a bunch of them. And you can really just almost see yourself in the conversation with her. She sounds like a force of nature who gave birth to a force of nature, right? And, I think that's so beautiful that we have these stories, So I just wrote a book, and I'm going to be terribly self-promotional now, but it does, bear some relevance to our conversation. It's called The Story of You. But thankfully, you endorsed. And the story of you, the whole premise of it is that all of us as little people craft a story to make sense of our lives, make sense of trauma, to make sense of good things, to make sense of all the things we're experiencing. And that story helps us survive as a little person, even though it's usually kind of negative. Because that's how human beings are, unfortunately, in this broken world. That's what we do. And then we unconsciously bring that story into adulthood, and it no longer serves us, right? Helped us as little people, does not serve us as adults. And so the whole book is about how do we rewrite the story? How do we get ourselves out of the broken narrative of our lives? And I just keep thinking about Thistle Farms and the women, that they're born into the world, they have these terrible experiences. And, you can have a charmed childhood and still have some really bad story to tell about yourself. And then part of the healing journey for them is being able to rewrite the story into a whole new one, a story of redemption, right? Like when I think about my early childhood story, I would have named it, if it were a memoir, Lost Boy. And now I refer to the story that I would prefer to live in and try to live in every day as the redeemed man, right? So talk to me about what the journey is from broken story to a story of wholeness, right? A renamed story for these women. Like, what does that look like?
And for me, I can talk, about some of the women, and for myself, what I think some of those elements are that help us not have the story control us and traumatize us, but where we control the story.
Yeah, be the narrator. You are the narrator. You have agency.
Yeah, and for me, one of the key plot twists was gratitude. I honestly never saw it in the whole story of the leper when the one comes back and says thanks. Even though he's had leprosy, he's had all this crap in his life, he's gone through so much, he's out there begging, he says thanks. And Jesus equates thanks with faith because he says your faith has made you well. And that part of the story changed it for me because I could get to thanks. Even if I couldn't understand faith as much, I could always get to thanks. So I was faithful. And it's, transforming a story that feels pretty broken or shattered into a story that feels like I had gratitude. I found gratitude. It was completely transformational. Like, we can get to thanks. We can get there. And I've seen that so many times in the women at Thistle Farms, is like, you don't have to do this big declaration of anything, but find out what you can say thanks about. And then that's a big part of it. And the second part for me, in the plot, is learning that forgiveness isn't an act, it's a journey. That it's not like I go, okay, I forgive you. Like, that feels pretty shallow, and it doesn't seem like it does justice to some of the events that have happened in our lives. Like, no, it's not going to be that easy. But to take a journey of forgiveness is transformative. It's, freeing. It's powerful. It is humbling. It is where you take all the aftermath of trauma and say, that is not the path I'm walking. I am walking this path that is leading towards freedom, because that's where I got to live. So gratitude, forgiveness, just really the basic stuff that is transformative. And then the other thing for me has been community. That's the third piece, is like, find safe community for anybody. If you can run to it, not walk to it, because you can't do it by yourself. We're not meant to live that way. And it doesn't have to be a large community, it doesn't have to be a formal community, but it has to be a place where it's like, I can say inappropriate things, or I can tell you some of the darker stuff and not be afraid. Because that fear it keeps you in that same story forever. And I do believe it's, the most transformational thing the world has known is community. I do believe revolutions start with a single thought in my head, or in your head, or in your head. But they're grown in community with others.
Hey everybody, one of the lessons I've learned over the years is that not everybody benefits from a traditional 50-minute counseling session. And this is why some people can go to couples therapy or personal counseling for a long time and never really get anywhere. This is why I'm such a believer of intensive counseling and my friends at Restoring the Soul in Colorado, created by my longtime friend Michael Cusick to help couples or individuals experience deep change in half-day blocks over 1 or 2 weeks. Now listen, if you can't wait months or years to get to the bottom of an issue or to experience breakthrough, you need to get in touch with my friend Michael and his extraordinary team of counselors at Restoring the Soul. If you're looking to get out of the rut you're in, but can't wait months or years, call Restoring the Soul today for a free consultation with Michael's staff. Call 303-932-9777 and learn how their intensive counseling process can help you. As a special bonus, just for Typology listeners, make sure to visit www.restoringthesoul.com/typology to download their PDF called 5 Ways Unaddressed Trauma May Be Derailing Your Relationships.
You tell a story in the book that I had a first row, seat for, and it's, for me, maybe one of the most powerful stories in the book, and because it speaks to your evolution in your transformational journey of having a broken story that included sexual abuse and trauma, to becoming the person you are today and living the story you're living in now. And it's the story of the grandson of your abuser showing up in church one day, actually in Thistle Farms, and then in church. Can you share that story just for a moment?
Sure, I'm happy to. I don't know, I'm happy to. I'm willing to. Yeah. But the story is just that I was doing a podcast right in the middle of the cafe at Thistle Farms, and this man walked in, and somebody said, you have to go talk to him. He needs to talk to you. And so I went over there and found out who he was, and that it was this crazy serendipitous timing in the world. I am 58 years old. I was 6 years old when the abuse started. 5 years old when my dad died, 6 years old when the abuse started. My abuser was 35 years old, and his grandson was 35 years old. That was standing before me. So basically,
and he didn't know.
No, and it was like a half a century, people. A half a century later, if you can imagine how long healing takes. A half a century of doing this work and of, going through all the steps, going through all the processes, having my own kids, therapy, hypnosis, all of it, and standing before him and thinking, why is he standing here? What does he want from me? And he looked like the guy. Wow. And he was the same age, but I'm looking 50 years past and living in myself. And that's when I was saying my mom's voice came. And then I had this huge outpouring of compassion and love for him. I didn't have anything that I thought I would have. And I could imagine the trauma in their family and how it continues. Because, trauma is generational too. Mm-hmm. And, things that are not healed, you get to pass down to the next generation. Mm-hmm. And it made sense that, of course, he would end up coming through there if he's really looking for healing. That he would have to come back, even without knowing who I was, he would find his way into that space. That made perfect sense to me. So I had this big outpouring of compassion and love and preached on it the next Sunday. What I didn't know is he was there, and so that's how he found out about what his grandfather had done.
Mm-hmm. And I was sitting next to you.
I was like...
I remember.
It was awful. It was just, I felt sick for him. I felt sick for myself. And part of me thought, well, how does he not know? I had confronted the family. I'd done all that work years ago. And I thought, maybe he did know. Or I couldn't figure out. But no, he did not know, and he was very mad, very, very mad. And I went back and immediately into this shameful place of I should never have told the story. I shouldn't. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I created this whole community so people can tell their story. I'm not saying names. I'm not trying to do any damage. I'm just trying to be honest about my own life and journey of forgiveness and gratitude. Nothing awful. And then, that relationship continued to deteriorate. And it was this crazy thing of I really wanted nothing but the best for him. But I also didn't want him to try to control that story again. I had spent too long freeing that story up for myself and in my life. And the gift almost was, I was traveling for the whole month of February when after this happened, and then I was at the border working with women asylum seekers on the border, and COVID hit. And so then I was removed from all those situations that were stressful about people coming into the cafe and coming into the chapel, and it was like I had this space to do this important reflection and thoughtful understanding of what I could have done differently, or how I could, maybe offer him some support without being, a trigger for him, any of those things. But it was like, honest to God, those first few months of COVID were a big gift for me. I know that sounds crazy. I mean, I did grieve and I kept going on the work. I did all that, but it was also like, sometimes I don't have to see anybody.
Mm-hmm. So you moved from that place of brokenness. You'd done a ton of work. In comes this man who I know and have spent time with, who is the grandson of your abuser. He does not know that that's part of this story. You tell this.
Why we were standing right there.
Yes. I mean, it's one of the craziest stories ever. But here, what's reflected, though, is how you've adopted a new story that's full of compassion and gratitude and grace and struggle. It wasn't, you got triggered. Lots of old stuff came up. Lots of confusion. But this new story is there for you. And I just love that you've become the person that you've become. And that story reflects the beauty of the soul that God has crafted in you and the new story that God has given you. And that message just runs all the way through Practically Divine, this wonderful new book of yours. And, you know, your work is just a lighthouse. You are a lighthouse.
In the good way?
Yeah. You're warm when you get close
Thank
to
you. I don't want to be the other part of it.
It's not cold. It's not cold. No.
No.
It's real warm.
You know, and the other thing is this is just a couple days ago, I meet so many people in the cafe at Thistle Farms and people who want to tell you their story and they want you to hear their story. And I was sitting there and I was really trying to listen. And, everybody this fall has been traveling again. Mm-hmm. We've gone from 0 to 60,000, and it's hard. It's hard to keep up. It's hard to listen. It's hard to be present. I find this is one of the harder festival seasons I've been through as far as like trying to get up for all of this that's happening. And I was sitting in the cafe and this man started pouring out the story like you're talking about. And he said, I've been waiting a long time to tell you the story. This is just somebody I didn't know. And as he was talking, I found myself not listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the worst. And I was like, okay, now is the time to practice your listening. Like lean in, listen to what this man has to say. He's waited a long time to tell it. Focus. And as I was focusing, the background music at the cafe sounded like it just went full volume. And it was the song, What Child Is This? And I was like, oh my God, this is the child. This is the Christ before me. This is the person embodying the divine right before me. This is the most important thing you're going to do. And I just started thinking about how beautiful it is, not only for people to rewrite their story and to tell it, but to rehear a story. Like I need to be leaning in and listening in a way with gentleness and compassion, because what child is this that needs to be wrapped in Mary's arms, that needs to feel like they're worthy of gold and myrrh? That's the child. And I love that your whole next season is about us not only just rewriting our own stories, but re-listening to other stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I love your new book, Practically Divine.
Let's just love each other's books all
Let's
day.
just love each other's books.
Would they make a good gift set? Would they not?
Yes, let's do it.
Yes, you can buy 2 for 1. I'll get the proceeds, and then you'll donate yours.
I'll give you my proceeds.
100% of mine go to Thistle Farms.
Well, let's sell them in the cafe, in the gift shop next to the cafe, and you can take all the profits from mine.
Sweet.
Amen. Becca, we're so glad and honored that you've come on the show. For those of you who have not already, acquainted yourself with the title of Becca's book, Practically Divine, and it's really such a beautiful book about us finding God in all things. Finding God in all things. It's about the intersection of crafts and justice. It's just loaded up with wisdom from your mama, and it's a prize. And I hope everybody jump on Amazon or run down to Thistle Farms if you're in Nashville, or go to your favorite bookstore and pick up a copy of Practically Divine. Also, I want you to go over to Thistle Farms. It's thistlefarms.com, right?
Org.
Oh, well, of course. Thistle, Thistle, farms.org. Is it farms or farm?
Farms.
Farms. Okay. Thistlefarms.org.
Do you know I just questioned it, by the way, when you said, is it farm or farms? I've only done this for 25 years. And I was like, wait, is it not farms? That's so funny. Is that an 8 that questions themselves completely?
No, that's a 58-year-old.
Oh,
who,
okay,
like
perfect.
me, is forgetting things like that on a regular basis. What's my middle name? Anyway, Becca, thank you for being my pal. Thanks for being on Typology. Thanks for your work in the world. And thank you for Practically Divine.
You are welcome. And please know that your friendship means the world to me. So I love being on here and I love talking about it. And I hope everybody has an amazingly divine day.
Amen. Hey, Typology listeners, remember these words. May you have love. May you have joy. May you have peace. May you have healing. May you have rest. Until next time.